The first free lending library in the suburbs was opened in Elizabeth in 1957. In Burnside, a free public library was first proposed in 1954, but this didn't happen for many years. 1957 saw a renewed push for a public library in Burnside when the Mayor, Philip Claridge, took up the cause and put the idea to Council. A committee was formed and another report produced, but no action resulted. Then in February 1958, a more concrete proposal with costing was formulated. The eastern portion of the town hall was suggested as a possible site, but once again the matter was deferred. Finally, after years of debate, on the 8th of April 1961, Burnside's first free public library opened with a book stock of 7,800 and a full-time staff contingent of just one. The cost of the building, furniture and fittings was about £12,000 and the annual running costs £4,050, half of which was paid by the state government. Tina Gervaisi, seconded from the State Library, was the first librarian.
I do remember that from the very first time they opened the doors, the place was busy with people registering and borrowing. It was almost overwhelming actually, because basically that's all we had time to do during the day. We registered people. I did have an article which my mother had fortuitously cut out for me, which actually had the statistics for those few weeks. So I was pleased to see that my memory was actually accurate in that respect anyway. Yet we were busy. And the other memory that I have is of the workroom. It was long and narrow because it went along part of one side. And down the bottom of it was a pile of books, a large pile of books which was still waiting to be shelved. And it never got any smaller because we never got around to it.
Well, it was an oblong building with an entrance on the side, and it was a very tall building. It had a mezzanine floor in it, and the ceiling was made up of oblongs, and every now and then they used to fall out. So I'd have to draw a chalk circle on the floor and say, "Danger, do not stand here." And the electrician from down the road would come up and put them back again.
Yes, this was my memory. I kept a diary from my last year at school and I'm still keeping it. So I had to look at around the April 1961 entries to see what I could find. And the Burnside Library was conspicuous by its absence until I got to the 19th of April, when I went to Burnside PL for first time, fairly quiet. Issued, slipped, registered some borrowers. Butte building, interesting. Then sorted cards.
Well, I come from a family of bookworms, and libraries have been part of my life since my very earliest recollections. And when we came to live in Beaumont, as we did in McCallan Avenue at Beaumont in 1959, one of the first things we did, of course, is look around for the library services. And my mother was pretty insistent that our family were amongst the very first to join the new library, which we did. So my recollections are of a much, much smaller building, obviously with far fewer volumes. In those days there were none of these electronic things, and all the entries were made in ink, and one was given a card to take away, a membership card, which I probably still have, being the board of the land.
Despite the misgivings of some councillors and others in the community, the library was an immediate success. By the end of 1961, 6,576 borrowers were registered and 110,000 books were borrowed from a stock of just 10,000. In 1976, the then Chief Librarian Ron Butler reported that staff had issued 3 million items in the 15 years since opening, a figure the library now achieves every 3 years. 1975 saw the establishment of a home library service, and the following year the library was extended in size to just under 9,000 square feet. Book stock was increased, a sound lounge was added, and the reference area was expanded.
First memories of the library, of Burnside Library, would be, we moved to Adelaide in 1978, from Sydney, and had been a keen reader when I'm in primary school. I moved when I was 12 in 1978, and I suppose I'm really not sure exactly, maybe 79, 78 or 79. I certainly distinctly remember riding my bike down here, the dragster, of course, in the 70s. Oh yeah,
dragster,
yeah,
yes.
love the dragster, and locking it up somewhere out there, wherever you used to be able to lock it, and then coming in and hoping that I got there early enough to be the first person to grab the latest ABBA album. I think it was ABBA Arrival. yeah, the one with the helicopter on the front. Anyway, or yeah, that one. Or there's another. Anyway, there was a few ABBA albums that were out at the time, sure, I was excited about that there were books at the library, but I was also excited the fact that there was music. So it was, I was able to go and grab the album, and then you had to take it to the librarian, and she would then go and put it on for you, and then she would give you headphones and tell you what number you were, and then you had to go and plug the headphone into a central column that had all these bean bags sitting around it.
Wow.
You sat down in the bean bag. First then you wanted to get the magazine that you wanted to read, and my favourite magazine at that time was American Scout magazine. I'm not even sure what it was called, but it was, it was talking about what scouts were doing in America, and I was a bit of a nerd, a bit of a scout. So I remember it was just fascinating sitting reading what scouts were up to in America, or listening to ABBA, sitting in a beanbag at the library. So that's my first memory of the library. Yeah.
1981 saw the computerisation of the library's circulation system, and in 1982 further extensions added a local history room and increased the size of the administration area and reference and children's libraries.
I'm Kate, and I started in the library on March 28, 1977 actually, so it's almost 34 years ago. And in that time, I've certainly seen a lot of changes. Staff-wise, the building, how many times has this building been changed? Quite a lot. Clientele changed as well, we've just grown bigger and better. Back then we were on the photo charging system, so that was just the next step from the card system. Then we eventually went down the path of computers, for finding information, joining people up.
In 1981, the Burnside Library began providing a mobile library service to the District Council of East Torrens, now part of the Adelaide Hills Council. 2 years later, an agreement was reached with the former City of Kensington and Norwood for the home service to be extended to that council in return for a financial contribution. And in 1985, a static library was established in the Institute building on the Parade, the first free public library in that council. Burnside ran this library for Kensington and Norwood until 1998. In 2001, the Adelaide Hills Council relinquished their arrangement with Burnside, and in 2003, Burnside's home library ceased servicing the old Kensington and Norwood Council area. By the early 90s, it was clear the library building was too small and was looking worn out. In a report to Council in December 1992, the manager of the library, Margaret Moxon, outlined a possible future for the library service and discussed the information explosion, the broad impact of new technology, and the need for extra space for collections and activities. Not until 1994 were funds allocated in the next budget to engage a consultant to review the service, and a community consultative committee was established to oversee the process. The consultant's report was tabled in December 1994. It recommended the library be expanded to at least twice its present size to maintain existing service levels and to implement an information technology strategy. The report concluded, "The library is full. Either it should be extended to a minimum of 2,000 square metres, or a new library building should be constructed elsewhere on the council site." By 1995, the library redevelopment had become one of the key strategies of the Burnside 2006 strategic plan, which proposed a vision for the future of Burnside. Under this plan, the town hall site, the civic heart of Burnside, was to be extensively redeveloped, and the library was to be the focal point of this plan. Demolition of the old library commenced in January 2000, and the new library opened in October 2000. The cost was $9 million.
So I was first elected to council in 2000, and my memory clearly is, it was quite early in the piece, that it was the chief librarian of the day, one Margaret Moxon, who spoke to me, and subsequently, or earlier, I don't know, I think she was talking to a few of us around about the same time, walking around clearly before I was elected to council was the notion of considering a new library for Burnside. And we were very keen when we moved down the road a little, having made the decision to examine the possibility of building a new library. It certainly didn't happen overnight, but we wanted to take sound environmental principles into consideration.
And of course, I've seen it evolve to the magnificent institution that it is now, 50 years later, and it's my good fortune sometimes to auction people's houses in the area, and one of the things I often mention in my auctions as one of the reasons that one should consider living here is this wonderful municipal library, and I think it's one of the, and I haven't seen them all obviously, but surely it must be one of the best in Australia. It
seems to me, as I look back from 50 years away, that right from the beginning, as soon as the library opened its doors, the people who live in the Burnside district wanted to be part of it and enjoyed it and supported it, and the council also did. I think the council then and in all the years in between has given the library the budget it needs to keep up to date with changes not only in technology but also in kinds of things that libraries are expected to provide these days.
While the building is more than 7 times the size of the original library and offers collections and facilities unimaginable in 1961, the library continues to do what its original proponents envisaged 50 years ago, providing for the recreational, cultural and informational needs of the Burnside community.